Let us bring our attention to these three bar charts. And the interesting part about this is the result of coffee. Now keep in mind, this was a single-blinded, randomized, crossover study. Pretty intense, which lasted 90 days in each group, the light roasted coffee and the roasted coffee. But these bar charts represent body composition, visceral body fat, and, believe it or not, muscle mass. Now, as a hypothesis, or they should say postulate the hypothesis in reference to the muscle mass, because it may have to do with effects of myostatin. But I don't want to interject publisher bias by accident. Let us proceed, though. Now, before I proceed, let's make these bar charts a little bigger. We'll do the body composition and the visceral body fat. You see they broke it down between females and males over a 90-day period of time. And there were benefits in both groups. But the benefits were greater in the light roasted coffee. Primarily, they believe, due to the higher levels of chlorogenic acid, hydrocinnamotic acid. Now, also too, let us look at the muscle mass. Again, that is pretty amazing. Now keep in mind, as we delve into the study, there was no difference in physical activity, no changes in diet. Yet, over a 3-month period of time, look at those benefits. Again, they can be confounding, and they want to see a larger study, obviously, and not everyone does well with coffee. But still just the same, let us get right into the study, because it's quite intriguing, because that is pretty fascinating, and I was blown away by the muscle mass part. Let us begin. Our consumption of coffee rich in phenol compounds may improve the body composition of people with overweight or obesity. Preliminary insights from a randomized, controlled, and blind crossover study. This was a controlled, randomized, single-blind crossover trial consisting in drinking 3 cups of roasted coffee or lightly roasted coffee. Keep in mind, don't forget that RC and LRC for what they stand for. During 12 weeks with a 2-week washout stages before each coffee intervention. LRC contained 400 milligrams of hydroxycinnamic acids and 130 milligrams of caffeine per 200 milliliter cup. Before you go Google it, it's about 6.7 ounces. While the roasted coffee contained approximately 150 milligrams of hydrocinnamoc acids and 70 milligrams of caffeine per 200 milliliter cup. Again, the reduction in the hydrocinnamoc acid is potentially attributed to the heating process. So the higher your roast, the greater reduction in a lot of those positive compounds. To proceed, these beneficial effects on the adipose tissue of overweight or obese people may be due to the hydrocinnamoc acid, given the postulating hypothesis. Acids present in coffees, especially the chlorogenic acid. So again, if you think of individuals that may not do well on coffee itself, there may be a potential to supplement with something that's higher in chlorogenic acid on its own. Proceed. In the study, the consumption of light roasted coffee contributes to an intake of about 1,200 milligrams per day of chlorogenic acid and its derivatives, while for the roasted coffee it was approximately 450 milligrams, which would explain, obviously, the superiority of the light roasted coffee over roasted coffee, and the tendency to reduce the visceral fat area. It should be noted, should also be considered, that there was no significant changes in terms of diet. Throughout the study, and the participants' physical activity of sedentary nature did not change, which really makes you wonder about the muscle mass part even more so. To proceed, it is important to highlight that the polyphenols are sensitive to high temperatures and that chlorogenic acid content can be reduced between or by 40 and 80% in a coffee with a high degree of roasting. Henceforth, the LRC tended to yield better benefits. Now keep in mind too, the researchers as part of their inclusion or exclusion from the research were individuals that could have been on antibiotics. So again, without interjecting publisher bias, meaning my own opinion, it could basically mean that there could be alterations in the microbiome as well, in which case the researchers didn't want to include anybody that utilized antibiotics. Now, the questions in regard to the muscle. How? Why? This intervention has shown an increase in muscle mass and the percentage of muscle mass with the consumption of both coffees, which may explain the lack of significant changes in total body weight. Again, when they're looking at BMI, they said, well, the weight really didn't change, but the body composition did. It is important to note that volunteers were instructed not to modify their habitual physical activity during the study, which was controlled by tracking daily activity levels within a 24-hour monitoring with accelerometers during 1 week in each intervention stage. Intervention. This would rule out the observed changes in the muscle compartment were due to increased exercise. Pretty phenomenal. Also, too, I want to go to the detailed methods. Again, we covered a little bit of how each coffee was prepared. And you could freeze this screen if you want to delve into it more, but still the results were just phenomenal. Again, larger studies want to try to eliminate any confounding that could have basically made its way into the study itself. Relatively small study itself, but yet still, don't know what the power rating was, still was pretty phenomenal just the same. I want to bring up those charts one more time to conclude it because it pretty much speaks for itself. Body composition, visceral fat area reduction, and once again, we'll bring up the muscle mass. The muscle mass increase without changes in activity levels and or diet, except for the intervention of light roasted coffee and roasted coffee. Again, pretty phenomenal research. Not everyone does well with coffee per se, so seek out potentially the chlorogenic acid. Maybe that's the key. I don't know. But again, future research will determine that. But still, phenomenal research. Gratitude to the researchers. As always, I am humbled you watch and look forward to seeing what you and I discover next week. Catch you all next time. See you then. Bye.